Yes, everyone, you know what time it is. It's your boys Jack, Dave, and we are long joined by Darius. It's been a long time. Finally back with us. It's good to get Paxton Road TV reconnected with the Irish Hotspur, and it's no doom and gloom like we were saying in the back end, Darius. It's no like
Yeah.
crisis that we brought you in to fix for us or anything like that. It's pretty much just sort of bask in the glory of being top of the table, and so. How are you? How are things? How's life? And what's, the weather for you right now as a Spurs fan? Are you just basking in it? Are you wearing the Spurs kits every single day?
I I am. I'm wearing it every time I go and play football. It feels good at the moment. I'm not getting overly hyped at the moment. I'm trying to dampen my expectations, but as our big old manager said, why dampen those expectations? Think about what we can do. Think about what is
No, no.
potentially in the future. So, yeah, I'm enjoying myself, man. I'm so happy to be back on this channel as you guys, you know how much I love you guys, and it's been a long, long time. So I'm looking forward to talking about Tottenham at the moment. And I feel like we were always talking about other teams tactically, about how good they were, and how diverse they were, and how
Hmm.
much they used to attack and whatever. Now it's us talking about our team like that. So yeah, I can't wait to get into it. We've got a good result to sort of go into as well. So yeah, no, properly looking forward to it, and happy to be back.
I'm enjoying life as well, Darius. And Dave, you usually, complain about the weather being too hot, but Spurs right now are playing the hottest football in the Premier League right now. How are you coping with it?
Oh, Jack, absolutely brilliant. I mean, room temperature with red hot football. I mean, it's two things that should go together. Two things that I've been waiting for a long time, Jack. And I'm glad to be here. Look, I know people say that football shouldn't affect your mood, but it does. Since Tottenham, this season, every game, every day during the week after a game and everything else, Jack, just been getting out with bed with a smile on my face earlier than usual, looking at all my Spurs gear and just believing. And I know there's a lot of reasons out there why people are saying, don't get too carried away and, you shouldn't be believing and stuff like that. And what I will say to people out there, first of all, it costs nothing to believe, right? It's free. So why can't you believe? And then a lot of the other narratives around it, and we can get into this, boys, is squad depth. And Jack, I take your point where you've highlighted Ben Davies back up to a Doji. A lot of people have highlighted the centre back, some people up in the forward areas and stuff like that. But for me, Vicario ain't going to carry an injury this season, one game a week, so he'll be in there for all 38 games in the league. But I also don't think we need, when I look at it, I don't think we need massive strength in depth. I don't think we're going to carry as many injuries this season as we did in years gone by, and we've only got one game a week, and I think that will play to our advantage. Um, and I also, I would also say we're not at our best yet. Something else that we're going to talk about in the forward area, I think, is the last area we're really waiting on to really sort of come to the party for this to click, for us to be a well-oiled machine and move forward. And I think once that happens, many people will start to believe. But
Yeah.
also, last two things I will say on that, Jack, on why we should believe is because I think Phil Coy's made a great point in the comments from the fan show yesterday. Leicester didn't have strength in depth. Nobody believed Leicester could get online. But what they had, and something similar to what we have, is togetherness. Fans, management, players, club, all pulling in the one direction. And that can take you a long, long way towards the title. And then you look at it, do we have the quality in some of the bigger or tougher games to get over the line? And yes, we do. And then last thing I will say is I heard all summer long to every point I tried to make, if Ange wants. Well, Ange does want you to leave. Ange does want you to happy clap. He said that, so do what he wants.
Let us happy clap, and he's given us that green light, and I'm enjoying the green light of happy clapping. It's part of the reason I even became a Spurs fan in the first place was because it kind of felt like a big enough club where you're going to be challenging, but you can almost celebrate a 2-0 win against Fulham, as hard as you celebrate a 2-0 win against Man United. You kind of take them when they come, and especially when you're as a Spurs fan, you go through the ups and downs. You really do. There's so many roller coasters, and I feel like I just try to just maintain some type of sanity through it, and when I get those moments to really just be optimistic, be just full of the hopium, I'm really going to take advantage of it. And oftentimes then my sense and my probably my rationality kind of goes a little bit out the window, but I don't know, Darius. I start to, believe, and the more that we remain undefeated, and also the more that sort of, the rest of the Premier League is kind of, kind of showing those signs of jealousy, right? They're finding all these different, ways to, explain how it's just an anomaly that eventually will be brought down to earth at some stage. I mean, I feel like I'm happy to be up on cloud nine, and I'm just going to enjoy it while we're here.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. What annoys me about rival fans and their reasoning for Spurs, eventually capitulating isn't ever to do with the actual football that we're playing. It's always, oh, we're Tottenham, so it's eventually going to happen. And it's almost wishful thinking in a way, because I'm like, when you look at what we're actually putting out on the pitch and the performances that we're showing, there's not going to be many teams that are going to really be able to beat us. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we're going to go the league unbeaten or anything like that. But I'm saying if you're going to beat us, you're going to have to put your A game on. And yeah, we can get into the whole squad thing. I think there is a lack of players to rely on coming off the bench. But yeah, like you said, Dave, I think there's also a lot of hyperbole when it comes to the squad depth. And the fact that we're going to play, Fulham on Monday, Crystal Palace on Friday, and then we've got a 10-day wait until the Chelsea game. It's like, that's a very big privilege to have. And I think there's going to be a lot of times in the season where we look at it, and again, December's always going to be busy for everyone. But we'll look at it and we'll think, yeah, this is actually kind of a manageable schedule for our squad. So in January, we look at positions and we try and improve. In my opinion, I say we just bring the summer business forward, because we're going to lose the likes of Bissouma, Sarr and Son to various international tournaments. So I say if you're going to do any business in January, don't do panic buys. Bring the business that you're going to do in the summer forward, because yeah, certain positions are always going to need to be looked at. So for me, the rival fans sort of worrying about us only seems to be coming from them hoping that we're going to fail because we're Tottenham. And yeah, it could happen. We could have a big capitulation, but I think that's going to be as a result of a very rare injury crisis that we'll go through. I mean, I'm confident. I'm confident that we're going to stay around those positions, and we're going to give every single team we face, be that, Man City, Liverpool, that we've beaten, or not beaten, we've played Liverpool and Arsenal, probably two of the three best teams in the league, and we've got 4 points out of them. So City's the only team that we're going to have to face who, in my opinion, are going to be better than us. And then, Brighton's, Newcastle's and Villa's are going to be tough for anybody. So, yeah, I mean, and you're speaking about those teams, you think they might take points off the other teams as well, and they're going to take points off each other. This is going to be a league where, it's not going to be high 90s and sort of crazy seasons that are going to take a title win. It's going to be it's going to be a standard 80-plus point season that I think is going to be what it takes to win the league. So yeah, not talking about Tottenham winning the league, but I mean the reasons that these rival fans are giving don't make it seem like I should be worried. You know what I mean? It just seems like you're almost trying to cope with us playing very well and being a very, very different team to what it was last year.
I've even seen a new stat being banded about. Like, first of all, we have the Premier League in a dizzy. They're asking for replays and everything else. It's actually embarrassing the way they behave when Tottenham are top of the league. But there's a new stat being banded around that Tottenham, 13 or 16 of Tottenham points this season have come from teams 13th or below us. Okay, fair enough. But let's flip that. I mean, we've lost to them teams last year and in years gone by. We found them games hard. We've lost to NS Mora. So the fact that we're actually getting points off these teams shows that we are on the right path. And then we, getting points off the top teams. We are on the right path. The problem is it's not just rival fans. It's in our own fan base as well. It's not cool to believe. The last 4 or 5 years, it's not cool. It's because of where we've been, the football that we've been dished up and had to watch, and there's no excuse for it. It's been absolutely crap. But it's been cool to pick the club apart. It's been cool to fucking highlight all the issues, which I totally agree with. But what it's not cool to do is believe. But everything else around the club has changed. The last thing that needs to change is our mentality going into games. That group, that squad, that group of players and that manager is giving us every reason, every single game to go into the next game confident, believing that we can get a result. But it almost feels like everyone is just waiting for Tottenham to slip up. Even us fans, we're going into every game nervous. And that comes because it's not cool to believe in Tottenham.
Is that
Well, I want to
we were
change that now.
slowly wired over time to be that way? Is that what you're thinking, Dave? It's almost like we were
Of
with
course,
the
but look,
defeats,
that's
with the trauma of, previous managers and how things
yeah.
went and transfer windows. Sort of Spurs fans have developed this skin where they just sort of expect it to come crashing down at some stage.
Yeah, and look, I'm not having a dig because I don't blame them. That's been the history of Tottenham the last few years. But that's what I mean. It's not cool to believe, but we now need to start believing. We have to start getting behind this team. You know, last season underneath Antonio Conte, we were told it was going to drop off. Eventually, it did. But this season, it doesn't look like it's dropping off. All these stats, going to the Emirates away, Tottenham won't win that. They never get a result there. Went out, took a point. Liverpool at home, Liverpool are going to absolutely annihilate Tottenham. Well, they didn't do that. We beat them.
No.
Man United, people going, first big test, done that. Then they keep shifting the goalpost. We've got to stop that, and at some point, as fans, we have to stand here, back the team. We have to.
Yeah, I completely agree. And
I
Darius,
agree.
you and I even kind of got to know each other through, the Flat Cap Bureau Talk, and our kind of whole thing was fixing Spurs. How can we manage, a budget of, this much, and what sort of players can we go after? What type of style maybe does suit maybe these players, and all those sort of questions. Have you seen that? Have you started to see that maybe kind of actually unfold? With the conversations you and I, used to have. Are you satisfied with how things, have kind of unfolded?
I am, and again, it's praise that I'm giving to Spurs. I'm very happy. The signings that we made in the summer, when you go through it and look at the impact that they had on the team so far, and also not even that, just the managerial appointment to actually improve other players who have been in the team as well. It's been fantastic. Part of me would say it's a stroke of luck because he wasn't our first choice manager. Let's not lie to ourselves now. We didn't stumble across him. I'm pretty sure we had tabs on him, and I'm sure a lot of clubs had, eyes on him and what he was doing in Celtic. But, Arne Slot was a choice in front of him. And I think that Postecoglou, again, when I did research on him, because I'm not going to go and pretend like I knew a lot about him. The only reason I knew about him was because of my love for Japanese players and his love for Japanese players. So I did my research on the man, and he really and truly is an elite manager, and I genuinely can confidently say he is an elite manager who belongs with the top managers, not just from a tactical standpoint, but from a man manager standpoint as well. So yeah, the recruitment has been good, but it's not over now. This is the most important part and important time. We can't just be like, we can't be proud of what we've done in the summer. We've done a great job. Van der Ven, oh my God. Oh, I don't even want to get into that man, because he is genuinely a God's gift, a God sent from heaven. Udoji, again, I could talk wonders about him. Bloody hell, Madison, let me not even... we could get into a very long conversation about all of the impact that these signings have had, but this is now where we need to kick on. For me, when I look at players like Skip, I'm not trying to hate on Skip, but again, he does not fit the system that we're trying to play now. We need players who are able to beat that press, and especially from a defensive midfield standpoint, he needs to be quick on the ball, because he's going to have players on his ankles, and he needs to be able to move out of that pressure when we're playing risky football on the edge of our box. So it's just now about building this squad that really is in the image of Postecoglou, and if we can do that, and we can carry on in January, building out this squad. And like we said, the 11's pretty good. The 11's almost, I would say, perfect for me. It's just, bringing players on that are going to have an impact. I think we need to do that, and that's the priority. And that might be an easier job or a harder job, convincing a player to, come into a team that may not potentially start. So I think the recruitment's been great. I'm really happy. We've been chatting for ages and almost years now about how we can improve Tottenham, and they're doing that, and they are looking at the profile of players that we were looking at, and it's just about continuing this on now, because I don't think we're near the final picture that I think Ange Postecoglou wants, and I think that we want. I think there's a lot more we can do to this squad, and if we're looking to that next level, we're going to be playing 2-3 times a week sometimes. So in the future, because I think we're going to get into the Champions League next season. So it's not just about this season. We've got to work on. It's a whole different level, and you can see that with all the injuries that these teams have had. So yeah, if we get 1 or 2 injuries to major players, as everybody said, if these thoughts and these dreams aren't gonna be as tangible and realistic as we think. So yeah, it's just about carrying on and doing what we do and potentially signing players that are going to impact our season, this season and going forward.
Well, I just on the back of that, just quickly, Darius. I mean, this is again where I think people have to start, believing. This has been going on the last 2-3 years, but no one's seen it up until now. But realistically, the likes of Romero was signed for, looking for the future. Emerson, Porro, Kulu, Bentancur, Doji, Vicario. We purposely lowered the average age of our recruitment to sign for the future, to sign players that are good enough for the here and now, but also when we get the right pieces of the puzzle all over the pitch, for us to be able to go on and consolidate something in the future. So I have no problems with that. I think we will. Even what we're signing this January, it won't just be to get us over the line this season. It will also be with a potential for next season as well, and seasons after that.
It seems like Postecoglou's like.
Dave. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
Darius.
Yeah, no, just say it seems like Postecoglou's aligned the whole club now. That's what I feel like he's done. It seems like everybody's singing from the same sheet. When you sign players like I'm trying to think of examples of young players that we signed, but just wouldn't. I can't even think of examples in my head now. But when you're signing
Brian
young
Hill,
players,
do you think is in that category?
Right, Brian Hill is a perfect example. When you think of Brian Hill and you look at what he was meant to be, and then you look at the managers we signed them for, it doesn't make sense. Like Conte was not going to play young players. Jed Spence, another example. Like you bring somebody like Jed Spence in for Antonio Conte, he's never going to play him. So yeah, as much as we've made these young signings, we're making the signings for the right manager. So we've done the right thing in aligning all of our sort of Daniel Levy's, his philosophy is he wants to sign young players. He's now got a manager who's going to buy and play young players. And now the academy, who I think if we didn't sign a manager like Postecoglou, we could have lost a lot of talent in that academy. And I'm telling you now, it's a good 4 or 5 players in that academy who I think really could be pushing in the next year or two to be potentially in this squad. So yeah, it's all looking good at the moment. I hope we carry it on.
I do love a good side tangent just quickly, and I would say that in the case of Levy there, though, I felt like he had Antonio Conte and Jose Mourinho at the time because he was convinced by those type of managers would deliver him sort of the fast track to a trophy. If he wanted to take the express lane, to get, the trophy cabinet, filled up a bit more, those were the managers that were kind of the ones that made sense at the time. But I don't think he was willing to concede on sort of the transfer strategies that he knew would actually be kind of best for Tottenham, which was lowering the average squad age, bringing in players that were kind of more meant for kind of the future, but eventually for the here and now, not kind of, veterans that have been around the block, that have sort of done that, type of guys that are on massive wages, etc. Like he wasn't willing to, I think, go all in with Jose and Conte for that reason. He actually wanted, I think, still to keep kind of the same sort of, recruitment strategy, whether if it even made sense at the time with some of the bad signings that we did make, the recruitment strategy in a way sort of was kind of consistent with the fact that we never really wanted to fully buy into bringing in a 29-year-old sort of proven star that's only going to be around for a couple of years, and then you kind of have to move him on after that for big money, etc. And you usually lose money on the asset. He only was going to bring in the Pedro Porros and the Emersons and the Jed Spences and the Brian Hills of the world because he it's not going to concede on that sort of manner. And maybe that's where finally we're getting it jointed, where we have a manager who can actually work with these type of players, whereas before we didn't, where the managers couldn't really work with those players for their own faults as well as for our own faults and our own kind of recruitment, of course spearheaded by Daniel Levy. But I think that's just a funny kind of tangent that I do like getting into, is where Daniel Levy is kind of guilty of that, where he'll have maybe the right idea, but then he doesn't even joint it with the right sort of action or the right sort of man to literally deliver what he's actually expecting. So it's a funny sort of kind of a roadblock, self-created roadblock or obstacle in a way.
When I look at that situation, right, the biggest problem under Pochettino was we couldn't keep goals out where we were before, and that's ultimately what led to him sort of getting sacked. And then you look at it, we brought in three defensive managers really, in Jose, Nuno and Conte. And when you look at what we signed in January in Pedro Porro, what we added this summer in Van der Ven, in Edoji and in Vicario, I actually think there was an eye on it where they were looking at getting their players in the forward line, getting their players in the midfield, and using Jose and Conte's defensive tactics and what's got them so far in their career to try and consolidate a defence with the likes of a Dyer, Sanchez and all them other people, thinking that they could do the job. However, it's proven they're that bad, not even the best defensive managers in the world could get them to form that. But as soon as they were ready to go with an attacker manager, once they put that back line in place, which I've always stated is the key to everything. You know, you keep clean sheets, you win leagues. It's that simple. You keep clean sheets, you win games. And then once we put them final pieces in place, so we knew we were in a position to put them pieces of final piece of the puzzle in place, boom, an attacker manager comes in. So I actually look at it as they were looking at getting all the more expensive pieces apart, the midfielders and your strikers, because they usually, and your wingers, because they usually command higher fees. And then once they get in the defensive back line, they know then they can go out and get an attacking manager because they have the base to do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also the Don, as well, delivered Pop Matasar as well as Bentancur, I believe, for under 20 million, which is also just one of those just, delicious steals that he was able to pull off. Just a quick sort of kind of, thing that came up in the fan show, actually, Dave, and maybe I'll start with Darius on this one, then ask you on it. We are playing so well that it's almost like your expectations are kind of starting to change at least a little bit, even if you did want to sort of stay on planet Earth and, not go up into delusional land like Dave and I do with our expectations. You still have to maybe concede something. Like maybe you're starting to expect Spurs to finish inside top four, dare I say. Would you be disappointed if Spurs didn't finish inside the top four, Darius?
Yeah, now I would be, because I've seen the way we perform. It's sustainable, in my opinion. A lot of fans are saying it's not, and the only reason it's not is because of an injury crisis. But the actual football we're playing, if we were to, let's say, hypothetically not have any injuries and, for the rest of the season, it's not many teams, like I said, who are going to be beating us. It's a sustainable way of playing football. We've got the personnel to actually, deliver what the manager is envisioning. And I think as much as, we are 9 games in, it is actually quite close, the league. A lot of people don't realise that. It's still quite close, When you look at points, we're on 23, and 7th place Brighton are only on 16. So there's still 7 points between us. That's only 2 losses, or 3 losses, 2 losses and a draw, whatever you want to call it. I think it's just about looking, and it's cliche, I know, but it is about looking towards the next game and the next game only. Because at the end of the day, I personally, I am not looking towards the end of the season. I really am truly just thinking about Crystal Palace, points at Crystal Palace, then Chelsea, points at Chelsea. And if you can do that and just keep it to, maybe a couple games, you sort of will stumble into that sort of positive outcome, because you're like, oh, well, now we're 40 points, 45 points, and it's almost mathematically impossible for you to fall out of that top 4. So if we keep winning, there's nothing to say that we won't. I am now, that is a long-winded way of answering your question. Yes, I am now expecting us to finish in the top 4, just because of what I've seen from us these first 9 games or first 10 games. So, yeah, no, I'm expecting, my expectations has gone up, but also at the same time, I am mature enough to know that things could not unravel necessarily, but we are really, like, we haven't lost the game yet this season. We don't know what it's like to lose under Ange Postecoglou in the Premier League. So it would be crazy to say that we're not going to lose. And I just hope that, because our expectations are so high, when we do lose a game, I really hope the fans don't start, being a little bit too over the top with like, if we lose 2-0, 3-0 to Man City or to Brighton or a Newcastle or a Villa, I'm personally not going to look at that as this is a disaster. I'm going to be like, okay, lick our wounds, move on. I mean, look at Villa. They lost 5. Did they lose 5-1 on the first opening day to Newcastle? And now they're stomping teams. So you can't look at results like. I don't think those results are going to be detrimental. I just hope, with our expectations being that high, that when we lose, it's not going to be complete meltdown in the fan base as it has been a few times in the past.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, top four is a start for me. I think Champions League football will definitely be playing in there next year. So get your jersey on order with the Champions League crest on it already, Jack.
Get the badge.
Look,
Get it printed.
You look at our run until December, and I take what Darius is saying about where we are in the league table to Brighton, right? But Palace, although notoriously it's a tough place to go, a lot of their best players are out injured, so we should be beating them. Chelsea should be beating them at home. Wolves, we should be beating them. Then you go on to Aston Villa, Man City, the likes of West Ham and Newcastle.
That December period is rough, though, Dave. That December
they're all in Europe, Joe. Like,
okay,
you know, they've all got Europe to contend with.
True.
So, you know, how are they going to have full squads available to them? Their best starting 11 available to them? I highly doubt it. And when you look at the amount of games that them clubs have to accumulate between now and December compared to what we do, it's double. So for us, we should actually be the freshest team in and around that sort of period. We should look fresh. The lack of minutes in our legs compared to other teams should come to the fore. And if you win the midfield battle and you work harder than your opponents, you're willing to outfight them and outrun them, which we should be because we have less minutes in our legs. There's no reason why we can't pick up points going into them games and get over that period.
I would be sad if we didn't finish inside the top four. And now that I look at things and the way that we're playing and sort of the different type of tests that we've already gone through, one of you guys touched on that earlier. It's not like, you know, even though the classic, you know, sort of jab at us, it's like, oh, they haven't played anybody yet. It's sort of like, I feel like we played a lot of different versions of kind of Premier League teams. We played the worst of the worst, you know, away from home and those sort of kind of tricky fixtures. We've played, you know, the best of the best away from home in the case of Arsenal, right? And we had to go into their den and, you know, we came out, you know, surviving, and we came out almost expecting maybe more out of actual games. Some of us maybe thought we could have gotten 3 points there. You know, went with Man United, you know, gave them a bit of sort of a, you know, I don't know, kind of a wake-up call on their season. I think we've had moments this season where we have, you know, kind of gone through different sort of litmus tests or whatever that's called, right? And we've survived them. There is that December fixture period that is going to be really tough. And I agree with you, Dave, that in a way it's actually tougher on the other clubs. So it's not really much for us to really complain about or really kind of make a big deal of, because every club has to go through it. But it is a lot of fixtures that you maybe wish if they were going to be back to back to back in the manner that they are, and kind of with so few days in between, you kind of wish those were the Sheffield Uniteds, the Burnleys, the Luton Town, you know, sort of fixtures, you know, back to back to back, instead of it being those tricky kind of teams like Aston Villa, Newcastle, and of course Man City's always tricky. But I agree with what I think Darius might have said earlier. With I've been impressed with, you know, specifically kind of the West Hams, sort of the Newcastles, the Aston Villas. They don't look like they're going to be challenging in and around the, you know, the top of the table, but they look like they're going to still finish pretty high up there, and they can give anybody a game on their day, especially at home. And that's where it's also going to, you know, not be one of those 90-point sort of seasons as well. So we do have to get ready for, you know, the roller coaster ride of, you know, challenging up at the top, you know, getting a little bumpy certainly at some stage. And I would be disappointed if we didn't finish inside the top four. I really would be. And I guess we also have to think about, maybe this is I don't know if this is a good transition, but we have to think about how can we improve, you know, how can we continue to, you know, be at the top. And I have some good stats, you know, here, everybody, of course, you know, being the Yank that I am, you know, I have to, you know, inject them somehow into the conversation here. And Spurs have the most shot creating actions in the league by a considerable margin, everybody. The most key passes as well, which is a pass that leads directly to a shot on goal by a considerable margin. The most progressive passes, you know, which is like a pass of 10 yards or more forwards. We love to hear that word, forwards. And most passes into the penalty area, and most shots on target. I think you combine all those together, it kind of sounds like Spurs are creating a lot of chances by the looks of things, but we're not really blowing teams away with the score lines yet. Do we have a finishing problem at Tottenham Hotspur, Darius?
That's hard. Yes. I don't really know, you know. You look at our front three, and I think Son is probably the best finisher in the league. I genuinely believe that. I think he's been one of the best finishers of this generation. I think we get into situations that are good. Yeah, you know what? I'm thinking about it now. Richarlison has missed a lot of chances that I thought put that away. And I'm not trying to put all the blame on Richarlison because it's not fair. But when you lay out that many... When you lay out that many stats, you know, shot creating actions, key passes, shots on goal, big chances. Like, you should have more goals to show for. And if you're not, yeah, we're winning games. That's cool. We scored 2 goals a game. I think in every single game but one. Um, you should really, you should really think about where you can improve. And if you look at where the shots are taken, are a lot of them in the box, are a lot of them outside the box? I'm not too sure. To me, it looks like a lot of our shots come quite close in and around the box. So I would probably, using all of that, say, yeah, we probably do have a finishing problem. That's quite easy to solve, though. That's why I'm not like, I'm saying it's a problem, but like it's not a sort of an issue where I'm worrying. Because one, you go out and get a player who can finish, a player has a hot streak. Things can change quite easily with lack of finishing. And two, we create so many chances now in our team that I'm not worried that we're not always gonna get chances to score. I think in a game we're always gonna have a chance to score. So even if we miss that many chances, we're still scoring our goals because we're creating so many chances as well. So if we were like in a situation last year where, Conte, you're only getting maybe 3 big chances a game, maybe less than that, the finishing or the problem with finishing becomes a much more highlighted issue because we're not getting as many chances to score goals. But because we're creating so many chances, I don't think the finishing is that much of an issue. If we were, in a situation where we were conceding a lot more goals as well, and this is also credit to the defense, yeah, I would say that the finishing is a bigger issue to highlight. So maybe Richarlison and other players who maybe should be scoring more goals are getting away with their lack of finishing because of the defense being so good and the fact that we're creating so many chances. But yeah, it's an issue, but it's not a problem. I think that's probably the best way to put it.
Problem finishing our dinner, Dave?
I know a lot of people ain't gonna like this, Jack, but the new definition of Spursy. Say having the best finisher and striker in world football, sitting there all summer long saying we don't need him, and then 9 games into the season, sitting here talking about we've got a finishing problem and we need other players to come in.
To be fair, it was my question, so yeah, I'm guilty.
This isn't just directed at you, Jack. This is directed at everyone who told me we don't need Harry Kane. That is the definition of Spursy. I'm sorry, but it's the new definition. I'm not having anyone tell me it's not. Do we have a finishing problem? Yes, we do. The theory was sell Harry Kane. Everyone else was start stepping up with 10 to 15 goals. Harry Kane was holding all these other guys back. Everyone was just reliant on Harry Kane. Which turns out that maybe Harry Kane was just one of the best finishers in the world, and we need other players to start stepping up in that finishing department, and maybe that other players just don't have it in them to finish. So I think that dispels all that and other narratives that were posted around all summer long as well about Harry Kane holding players back, this, that, and the other, and everything else. I'll be honest, I just get so frustrated with the whole conversations because I tried warning that, we would be at this point somewhere during the season. I knew we would be. And I do think it's the definition of Spursy. And being honest, I think it's the only thing holding us back from everyone saying, we're title challengers. If we had Harry Kane, people would be talking about us as title challengers because we've got the goals in the team. Right now, everyone's looking at it and going, well, if Son gets an injury, the goals dry up. But last season we had Kane, or in seasons gone by for the majority of the last few seasons, we've had Kane and Son. Now we've just got Son. So we have created a problem. And other players aren't stepping up. Richarlison's wasteful in front of goals. People are giving Brennan Johnson a free pass. He had a few opportunities in North London Derby that he wasted. Solomon's wasted a few. Kulu's wasted an awful lot.
Yeah.
Look, there is an opportunity that these guys maybe, with a few more games, a few more opportunities in front of goal, that maybe they sharpen up themselves in the finishing department, Jack. But it is wishful thinking.
Yeah.
And I think one thing we have to recognise at Tottenham going forward is that when you do have a player who is as potent as what Kane was, or even now with Sonny, let's not make the same mistake with Sonaldo, that when you've got a player that is that potent, he is not the problem. He is not holding everyone else back. He is the one that week in, week out is trying his best for the club. Other people are the problem. Others need to step up to the plate. And hopefully, for me, we take lessons learned from this. We go in January and we go in and get what we need in that forward department to be able to propel us to the title, Jack. That's all I'm going to say on it, because I get really frustrated with these conversations when they're things I highlighted 6 months ago.
I'm sorry I discovered, the new definition of Spursy for you,
It
Dave.
is, though.
Just when, Ange was ridding it away, and just when Ange was, trying to destroy it, I found a new one for you, which is disappointing. Maybe, I'll find a better question next time. And my sort of answer to it, I feel like we do have a finishing problem, and it's sort of, some would say, oh, we should, we should get Richie off of the wings, or, we should play this person, instead out there. It's like, I don't think we really have much of a problem with creativity, clearly, right now. Like, we couldn't really create chances almost any better than we are. It's almost like, like polishing a Lamborghini in that department. Like, what we really need is actually take a look at really under the hood right now and, realize that we are spurning some pretty amazing, quality chances. I feel like, this season, I might have even said this to you in the Snapchat, Jerry, said, we had the chance of scoring some of the best goals, I feel like, we've seen in the Premier League this season, just yesterday against Fulham, some of the best patterns of play, some of the sexiest, bit of football that's been watched by Premier League eyes. And, we just don't end up really finishing them. And we'll just score kind of a different goal that actually looks almost harder. And it's usually been Sonny that's actually been that guy that's, ended up scoring the goal that's been harder. And that's where I get a little worried that, yeah, we're going to unlock and we're going to break down, any team that we probably come across now. I'm pretty confident of that. We are going to be creative. We are going to be able to, cause them problems and make them worry. But there doesn't seem to be anybody that ruthless really in front of the goal right now other than Sonny really at this moment. When he misses a sitter, usually then he's going to bury it the next one round, where it doesn't feel that way with the rest of our players. Like, they'll miss a sitter and then they kind of miss the next one right afterwards. Even Kulusevski kind of looked like he became allergic to shooting in kind of the Fulham game. He just didn't want really to score, which is kind of a problem. Your job is to score in those sort of areas. You're not expected to score every game. He is one of our chief creators, but you can't be passing up chances like that. Same thing with Richarlison, of course, has to be said. I would even go as far to say that James Maddison, with the sort of rumor that he got in the way with Sonny and he got like kind of mad about it and everything, I was like, it's pretty audacious to say, because I feel like you've missed a lot of pretty easy chances, this season, throughout. Like, he's been 10 out of 10, James Maddison. Absolutely couldn't criticize him at all, but I did find that a bit kind of bold to say. It's not like he's been that ruthless or clinical really, so for him to really get that upset about that seems a bit kind of crazy to me, because he's wasted chances. So we have to have somebody step up, like everybody expected them to, like Dave is sort of alluding to. I don't think really anybody has, other than Sonny. Sonny's performing at the best level really he could be. Maybe he could go a little higher than this, but again, why would we really get on his back? He's performing at the best possible level that you would expect of him. He needs someone else like what he had in the past with a Harry Kane that could sort of meet him at that level of efficiency, that level of ruthlessness, that we then don't have to rely just on one player to be, ruthless in every single game with these chances. We probably do need somebody to either actually reach that sort of level of efficiency and that level of ruthlessness, or we have to look towards the market to pick somebody else. Actually, when we even think about sort of winger versus striker, which is a question we have later for, I believe, all the members, which is we're going to answer more specifically there. So I'll try to be, well-behaved here, but I'm more kind of keen on just a guy that just scores goals. I don't really care what position he plays, just somebody that can help out in the goal scoring. I don't think we have a creativity problem. We have a finishing problem right now, and it could happen, Darius and Dave, through someone else. Like a Kulusevski could step up more, James Maddison could step up more, maybe Richie starts banging him in. Evidence right now is not really suggesting that. It's more suggesting that Spurs have no problem creating chances, just do have a bit of a problem in kind of finishing their dinner. And do you feel like that's going to come back to haunt us at some stage, Dave, maybe come that December period or something like that? And then I'll ask Darius as well.
It's hard to know where Sonny's at, Jack, with his all-around fitness.
Because we could have scored more than 2 goals in some of these games. Like, they ended up being tighter games than they actually needed to, because, we didn't blow them away in the first half like we could have.
But the thing is, I think one thing, that I would say is Harry Kane got goals in tight games. That Brentford game probably would have turned to 3 points. That Arsenal game probably would have turned to 3 points. So there are results already that I felt if we still had that duo of Kane and Son with Maddison in behind them, you turn other results into wins. And look, that's probably nitpicking as well. But look, Jack, the intention was never for Sonny to be down the middle this season. That was never the intention. We're just lucky that, Postecoglou, had the balls to move Sonny into the middle, take Richarlison out at a time where most managers probably would have stuck with him and kept Sonny off the left-hand side. And we're lucky that Son is, we know this, that he's absolutely lethal in front of goals.
Yeah, and he
We're
can
lucky
do it.
that we had another player like that at the club. But look, Jack, it very well could come back to haunt us if we don't sort it out. Because what will happen is teams will learn to sit low block against us to eliminate Son's main threat, which is space in behind. Then you're asking Son then to hold up the ball and create space in and around 6'4" big strong centre backs, which is not his sort of game, mainly with his back to goal. And then you're asking different things of Son. We've seen last season when Son was receiving the ball on the halfway line with back to goal. That's not his game. That's not what he's good at. So there will come a point in the season where teams will discover how to play against Tottenham or neutralise a lot of Tottenham's threat. And that will be by sitting low block. They'll condense up the middle to allow no space for Son and Maddison. And you'll see a lot of our wingers get the ball. And that'll happen because teams won't be too worried about them in terms of goal threat. So it very well could come back to haunt us. And that's why I do think in January, I think we have to look at this situation. I think we have to get something different up front, or push Richarlison through the middle at times. But Postecoglou tried doing that earlier on in the season, and it just didn't quite work out. So I do think if we don't go to the market, potentially it could come back to haunt us. And I just think if we had Harry Kane now, everyone would be looking at Tottenham and they'd go, okay, well, they've got the goals, they've got the midfield, and they're keeping clean sheets. Why can't they win a title?
Dave and I being too harsh here, Darius?
No, I think it's, you know what, Spurs, like we've always mentioned, we make up as much, dreams and glories we want. There's no point dampening any sort of mood that's going around the fan base. I think it's one of those things where we have to just really push and go for as much as we can while we can do it. We are playing well. We're doing a good job. We are performing to a level that I, expect teams who are in that title race to perform at. So who's to say? I mean, you look at the stats. It's 20 goals scored, 8 goals conceded. We're the 4th highest goal scorers in the league, and I think we've conceded the second least amount of goals in the league. So it's like we're in and around the best teams. And you mentioned all those stats as well. I really do think we just have to keep pushing. But
then that says something to me, right? The fact that we're 4th highest goal scorers with those stats also.
Well, you know what's hilarious?
The most chances
Brighton,
created, but
Newcastle,
we're 4th
and
highest
Aston
goal
Villa.
scorers.
Yeah, Brighton, and I know Brighton, Villa, and Newcastle had those results.
And those guys are ruthless.
5-1s and 6-1s. Yeah, I know Newcastle winning 6-1 and 8-0 in the same season, and we're not even 10 games in. So obviously, but to say that do you know what? To say they've won 8-0 and 6-1 in the same. No, sorry, was it Villa who won 6-1? My bad. Villa won 6-1, didn't they? They won 5-1. To say they won 8-0 and 5-1 in the same season, and we've only scored 4 goals less than them, shows the consistency at the level that we're scoring at. We are scoring goals at a consistent amount. It's just, I know what you mean, Dave. It frustrates me when I can see us make a game look more difficult than it is because we're not finishing chances. And the prime example of that is fucking Luton. I would have been so angry if we had lost any points to Luton. Bearing in mind the first 10 minutes of that game, we had 3 clear-cut chances to score and basically put that game to bed. That's what will frustrate me the most, is if we're making games more difficult than they should be. And it's a slight issue to have, and it's probably, some would say, a minor issue to have, and people would say we're nitpicking, but that's what I expect. If you want to be champions, if you want to act like champions, if you want to be a champion, nitpicking is what separates you from the rest of the bunch. So these little things, when we come against teams who aren't going to give us those chances, we're going to have to bury them. We're not going to get 4 chances like that against Cities and Liverpools and Chelseas and stuff like that. So I completely and 100% understand where you're coming from in terms of the finishing, Dave. I've got no issue with critiquing that. I think we should really, because towards the end of the season, it's gonna get difficult to not have very close call games without potentially taking that risk of losing it because we didn't finish our
Yeah.
dinner, like you said, Jack. So yeah, I think just keep going and make those minor improvements, and it will work out.
I keep saying this, that it is a sign of the times where we're at, that we're critiquing winning, which is a great sign of how far we've come from where we last spoke to Darius, right? It's a great sign. However, you're in an era with Man City setting the standard so high. Unfortunately, you have to be near perfect.
Yep.
You just have to be, and that's why it is important. Even though you're winning, it's still important to know your weaknesses, and that's what champions do, Jack.
No, it is. And I agree with the point that you guys, well, it's just sort of the point I guess Darius sort of touched on in the end there. It's like games like Luton Town that we made hard on ourselves. Like, if you want to really be serious about finishing, well at the top, like, you gotta make that easier on yourself. Like, you can't watch a team just sort of turn up like that and just give you, 4 clear-cut sitter chances, and you don't take any of them. You end up waiting on your center back to have to finish, a random goal, off of a corner kick, with a bit of brilliance from Madison. You just gotta make the game easier on yourself. And I know we're not playing, European football, but let's say we were. You would end up, tiring, unnecessarily. Like, instead, you could have taken advantage of the team just sort of, folding over and turning over for you. And just, you end up 3-0, 4-0, at halftime, bring on the kids, you get to, sort of kick back, put on the flip-flops and, watch the rest of the guys on the bench, play for you. And you get so much from that, right? And we just don't have, I feel like, those sort of games yet this season where we've been able to, give ourselves that sort of, leg up, or that sort of opportunity when teams have given us, or shown us some weakness, and they've shown us that they're not ready for what we're putting to them. We should have taken advantage of it. I feel like if a couple of times, and there have been games where, I'll be honest, the scoreline was not as close as it should have been. Like, it should have been a 4-1, it should have been a 5-2, it should have been something more on that sort of level, but it wasn't. And thanks to our defense that we improved, from Mickey Van de Ven keeping Romero, and seeing of course the new goalkeeper in the Big Vic, who I think really is actually on a tiny tangent, is probably really secretly one of the best signings that we've actually made this season, because the guy, after coming up against Bernd Leno, the 2 best goalkeepers I think statistically this season have been Bernd Leno and Big Vic. Big Vic pulled off 2 crack saves to be able to keep us in the clean sheet, and I bet he's going to do it once again later on this season. Unless you guys have any other sort of touching points, we do have a little section just quickly on a certain Richarlison, if we can move on to that one.
Yeah.
Is there a narrative going on, Darius? 801 minutes for Kulusevski, 9 starts. He started every game, 2 goals. Richarlison, 475 minutes, almost nearly half, and 6 starts instead, 1 goal and 3 assists, and a goal in the Carabao Cup. So that would be 4 goal contributions, or 5 goal contributions to Kulusevski's 2. Is there a bit of a narrative maybe surrounding Richarlison that's a tiny bit unfair, do you think?
In the nicest way possible, no. I really don't think there is. Unfortunately, that Luton game, that said it all for me. I mean, even against Fulham, he put a shot way over the bar. I'm pretty sure it was a game against Fulham, way over the bar. And I don't think, we signed Richarlison to score goals. I don't think we've necessarily signed Kulusevski to score goals. Obviously, as a winger, you're meant to score goals. That's part of your trade. But Kulusevski has, affected the pitch and affected our play a lot this game. And me personally, I think he's been given a little bit too much praise this season. I think he can really improve his game. I think Kulusevski's got the ceiling to become an even better player than he is. I think a lot of people have made him out to be a lot better than I think he has been. But Richarlison, when Richarlison's been given the opportunity, yes, he works hard, yes, he presses. I will say that's, the bare minimum that you do as a player. Him making a slide tackle to win the ball back is what I expect. A lot of our goals have come from players intercepting the ball. And I mean, the Madison goal against Burnley, Udogie intercepted the ball, got the goal. You look at the goal that we scored against Fulham just gone, and the Madison goal against Fulham, I think it was Van de Ven or Højbjerg. Sorry, not the Madison goal, the Son goal against Fulham. I think it was Van de Ven or Højbjerg who intercepted the ball, and it leads to a goal. So these things aren't uncommon. I don't really want to be praising players for running around the pitch. So the next thing that Richarlison is meant to be doing is scoring goals, and he's not doing that at the moment. And he's also missing big chances. So I don't think there's an unfair narrative around Richarlison. We spent 60 million on the guy. I think he really needs to take a look at himself and you know, I understand he's going through a lot. And I understand it's a bad run of form that he's been going through. But it's when are we gonna look at him and you know think, okay, is he actually good enough for what we need? And now we have a different manager in place, because let's not lie to ourselves. He wasn't signed for Range Postecoglou. Postecoglou's trying to make as good of a player as he can out of him. If we can cash in maybe half the money, maybe 3/4 of the money, you get somebody who fits the profile of Postecoglou's system way better. How long are you going to give the guy? Are we going to go back into this sentimental Tottenham Hotspur where we've had Ben Davis and Eric Dyer at the club for 10 years and Sanchez only leaving the club now after we knew he wasn't really good? I just think it's going to become that situation where he will stay at the club for long enough. He will stay at the club for long enough to the point where people will start to hate on him, and it will start to be like, oh, he's not scoring, and now he's the reason why we're failing, and he's the reason why we're not doing well, and he doesn't deserve to be the scapegoat, because he's not the scapegoat. But it's not unjust criticism, I'll tell you that for sure. He really isn't performing to the level that a 60 million, you know, player who's, I'm not going to say he's meant to replace Dave, but he's meant to be, when you complained, Dave, about, you know, the burden not being lifted by the players, I think a lot of that does come down to Richarlison. I'm not putting it all on him, but, you know, I'm not expecting Pierre-Emile Højbjerg to score 7 more goals in the league. It's Richarlison, it's Kulusevski, it's Brennan Johnson and Solomon. They're the players that I'm expecting to get those goals that Harry Kane hasn't scored. So, and is he doing that? No. So yeah, I personally, I'm onto Richarlison. Unfortunately, I think he needs to improve a drastic amount.
Has he been playing better though, Darius? On the left, just the last few games, do you think has he been showing a bit better? You know,
not good enough. What's he doing? What is he doing that he's not been doing the whole time he's been at Spurs and the whole time he's been in the Premier League? He presses hard and he misses big chances. That's what he's been doing. He's created chances, yeah, cool. But when you're in a system like Postecoglou's, you could put anybody really in that left wing slot, and they're gonna have to create a chance or two in a game because of the amount that we do create in a game. So. Again, I sort of liken that to, you know, being in a Pep Guardiola system on the wing, especially not necessarily as much now because he has Haaland, but especially back in the day where you could put a lot of left wingers and right wingers in that system. And I'm not taking anything away from, you know, the wingers that were there, but a lot of wingers in the Premier League probably would have got 10, 15 goals under that system that Pep was playing. So, and the same for Postecoglou. Yeah. You're going to create chances regardless of the player you are. If you have something about you, I think you're going to create chances in the system. So, again, I'm sorry, I don't think he's been any better than he has been in the previous games. I think he really needs to be doing what his job is meant to be, and that's to score goals. Yeah, 3 assists is great, but I think Brennan Johnson will do that for us. I think Perisic will do that for us, as he was doing. And I think Solomon was doing that for us, even though I don't think Solomon was playing at his best level before he got injured. So, yeah, sorry, I think he needs to improve a lot.
I appreciate the honesty, Darius. And Dave, I want you to be honest with me, be straight with me here. Darius mentioned that, you know, maybe there's a bit of sentimentalism going on. You know, there were a lot of Dyer lovers, a lot of Davies lovers, you know, that wanted to keep them around, even though we knew they weren't good enough. Am I a little guilty of that here with Big Rich? You can be straight with me, Dave. Am I a little guilty of it?
First of all, I find it hard when people say to me, especially me, oh, there's no room for sentimentality at Tottenham. When I've spent hours, in fact, I spent the majority of 2021, 2022, and half of 2023 explaining why Sanchez is shit and not good enough for Tottenham. Dyer, Davies and Winks and everyone else in years gone by, and everyone's come back with arguments on why they should be kept around. So I don't want anyone to come to me and say, you know, oh, there's no room for sentimentality. I was one of the first one to start preaching that, so don't come to me with that. And I'm not having a pop at you, Darius. It's just in the grand scheme of things. I don't want anyone to tell me about that. But look, one thing I will say with Richarlison is, in years gone by, a lot of other players have made excuses. They've blamed the club, they've blamed the coaching, they've blamed management, they've blamed not being allowed ketchup and mayo, they've blamed being undertrained, they've blamed being overtrained. You know, they've blamed everything in and around the club. One thing Richarlison has not done, which is why I'll always give him a bit more time than what you know, I would have given other players in the past, is because he realised the problem was his, and he's gone about fixing it. And to be fair, since he spoke about it and come out and looked about and told us that he was all going to fix it, his performances have picked up on the football pitch. However, when he plays, he does make it look hard and awkward. And I think that's just down to the style of Richarlison. And what I mean by that is you look at the way Son and Madison move, right? They're naturals. You look at the way Richarlison moves, it looks unnatural.
The opposite of a techie player.
But I know Darius is saying, you know, I expect hard work and pressing and running around as the bare minimum. Well, I mean, that wasn't the bare minimum set at the club over the last four years. Let's be brutally honest about it. We had so many players out there going through the motions. My mother, who does not watch football, despite me and my dad being fanatic football fans, she, you know, as she's getting older, she's sitting in the kitchen with the owl lad, you know, he'll have the match on. And even she said to me, you know, last year, them players don't care. Now, if my ma, who does not watch football, can see that on the football pitch, you know, it's clearly not a bare minimum or a standard that is a bare minimum. So he works hard. He works extremely hard. Is that enough to keep him at Tottenham? No, it's not. Unfortunately, because of the money we paid and the position we originally bought him in, he will always, forever be judged on the goals he scores at Tottenham. Yeah. Regardless, he could come off with 15 assists off the left-hand side. He will still be judged on how many goals he scores this season. In the long run, is he going to be good enough to get us to where we need to go? No. However, right now where we are in the current situation, when I've seen even last year under Conte, right, you've seen how good the squad could be and how bad it could be under Conte. We've seen that. Yeah. And the reason why that happens is new manager bounce, everyone is at it. After a little while, when the manager's got his foot under the table and everything else, the same old problems and players reared their heads and destabilised things. With Richarlison, is he going to destabilise that at Tottenham? No, he's not. And he fits in with what we're trying, the ethos we're trying to cement in and around the club right now. So for me, he's got until the end of the season to prove, you know, that he is good enough to stay at Tottenham. But what I don't want, you know, is people going, oh, he's not improving. He is improving. His performances are picking up, and he's got more goal contributions than any other winger in this Tottenham team. Kulu, Solomon, Perisic, more than them all. Okay, it doesn't look natural, but he's effective. Yeah. But he does have to improve.
I think people can already tell by now I am a fan of the clunky players. I am a fan of the donkeys, you know, the big guys, you know, up top that, you know, just make things look a bit awkward. And I think Richie is, you know, absolutely in that category. And when he is at his best, you know, he is a fun player to watch because, right, you know, you don't really know where he's going to touch it. Sometimes, you know, his sort of bad touch is, in fact, you know, usually a good touch, you know, because it just sort of throws people off. And he has this sort of, you know, kind of unexpectedness, you know, about him. And I will say, you know, despite, you know, him being, like Dave sort of brought up there, you know, nowhere near as, you know, as technically brilliant as Kulusevski, Sonny, pretty much the rest of the forward line. You know, he doesn't make it look as smooth as them. He is a real missile in the air, I must say, and that's where it's kind of funny too. All the goals that I think he has scored for Spurs have been in the air. You know, if you're going to see Richarlison scoring, it's probably most likely going to be in some way, you know, happening in the air, and that's where he, you know, has that asset to him. But he just needs to be, you know, more clinical when it's actually with the ball at his feet, when he is played in behind, and he's just finding a way to mess it up each and every time. And I don't think you can get away with that. No matter how much sympathy I continue to show the guy, you can't get away with the chances that he has spurned as a forward, as a striker. You just cannot. I think he's far different when it is in the air. I think he really does bury them actually quite well and is actually, you know, real handful. But it's different when you are, you know, played him behind like he was twice, you know, in Luton Town, and he's just not bearing those. You just simply need to. I would say in the recent games, like on the left, he has surprised me. I did not back him actually to even do well on the left. I didn't think he was going to be, you know, as creative as he has been. I think he's actually shown more creativity than even Solomon, you know, in the brief, you know, spell that he has had, you know, on the left. I think he's so far kind of been, weirdly enough, kind of, we haven't seen, you know, a ton of players out there on the left, but he's kind of been the best one, you know, so far, at least in my opinion, in creating chances, especially in that Fulham game. He deserved more than one assist. I think he deserved 2 or 3 assists actually on the evening. He really set up, you know, some of his teammates for a few chances. But the issue is with Richie is that he's setting up chances for others now in a pretty good way. But then when people set him up, he just finds a way to just make an absolute meal of it. And and make it look, you know, a lot harder than it should have been. And that's his issue. He's just, I think if he gets that goal, which we've been saying forever, and it's such, you know, a common, you know, thing that it is a little annoying that I, you know, bring that up. But if he does get that goal like he had, you know, with his opportunity against Fulham, I think people would realize, like, wait a minute, Richie did have a pretty good game today. Like, you know, he got an assist, you know, he set someone else up. He was, you know, effective, you know, down the left, and he got his goal, and he finished that chance that we needed to him. The problem is he's just not finishing that chance that we need him to. So you can't be too over complimentary. You can't be too sympathetic, because he's not doing his whole job. He's playing a little better, but he's almost doing 50% of his job. He's not really doing his whole job, and I can understand that argument. And I just feel like
he's doing the job of a winger, though.
He's doing the job of the winger. He's doing the job of the winger of creating chances, working really hard down the left. Him and Sonny and Kulusevski are probably the hardest working pressing front three in the league right now. Like, they really are really selfless in the way that they do consistently press, you know, and try to win the ball back. They really do have that hunger to win it back. But I just think 50% of it also is finishing chances, Dave, because we just spoke about Sonny's the only guy finishing chances, so we need someone else to step up and do that part. Richarlison is the obvious candidate to have done that. And while he is doing a better job at being more creative, being more useful, because earlier he just wasn't even useful, really. Now he's being more useful. He needs to do the other end, which is bearing the chances, in my opinion.
Agreed. Look, last thing I want to sort of say on it as well is, let's not learn to run before we learn to walk. I mean, you know, before we focus on shipping the likes of Richarlison out here, you know, who does work hard, and every opportunity he's given, the bare minimum is you get someone that worked hard. You know, let's focus on getting Dyer out of the club. Let's focus on getting Lloris out of the club. Let's focus on getting Davies out of the club. Let's focus on getting Lo Celso out of the club. Ndombele, finally getting rid of Rodin, Tanganga, people like that, before we even look at other parts. You know, people that have been here a lot less going, oh, straight away, get him out. Okay, but then why do we have the tolerance for Dyer and all these other players that have been here for so long? Where's the same energy shown towards them guys who are the problem? Who, you know, didn't even set a culture of bare minimum come to Tottenham is working.
Yeah, not even the right culture.
You know, why aren't we talking about getting all them gone first? You know, where's the tolerance? Why can't we show, if you're going to have that with Richie, well, then you better double down and have it twice as much with the likes of Dyer and everybody else.
Oh, facts.
Definitely, Dave. Definitely, Dave. Darius, thank you, sir. Brilliant podcast, my friend. Paxton Road TV. It's good to be finally combining with you once again. Please give your channel or whatever you might be doing, you know, kind of in the Tottenham Hotspur sphere, whatever's coming up in your life, a plug. And just again, my friend, thank you, sir.
No, honestly, guys, I cannot believe it's been this long. And you know what? Just being back on this podcast and being back on the stream with you guys made me realize how much fun I have talking about Tottenham. I have so much to talk about. So hopefully this is not the only time that we can get on and talk about our great team. Definitely, because honestly, when it's positive, it's a lot better, isn't it? It just feels a lot better. It feels like a great little chat with your mates. It's not like we have to come here and cope and then give each other therapy sessions. It's none of that anymore. So no, thank you so much. I've had a great time, honestly. And yeah, we're going through a little slight, I'd say, rebrand. We are still Paxton Road TV, but I think if you see us on YouTube, we may be PRTV Spurs. So it's the same gang, same people. I think we are still uploading on both channels, but soon we're going to make a transition over to PRTV Spurs. But no, we are Paxton Road, and we still go by Paxton Road. And if you are, you know, a member of Paxton Road TV and you haven't subscribed to the new channel, please do. But also, if you are subscribed to our channel and you haven't subscribed to these guys, please subscribe to these guys as well. But I'm pretty sure everybody in the Paxton Road army subscribed to the Irish Hotspur family. So no, I am so thankful. And yeah, hopefully we can do this again pretty soon.
A lot of good people over there, from Sam to Sid to Jody, of course, with the player ratings. I love Sean as well. There are a lot of nice people over there. So definitely, I think you would benefit from checking them out, people. So we'll put them in the description, of course. You know, we'll tag them, all that good stuff. You won't miss them. No excuses. But I think we'll leave it there. Smash a like button, please. Get those comments down below. Maybe on what maybe want us to discuss next time, and we'll be seeing you. Come on, you Spurs. In the beginning, we trust. We never stop. See you, everybody.
Everywhere we go.